Hello everyone, this is a guide for setting up a Medusa project locally on your computer and deploying it to Heroku afterwards to get a production ready environment. We'll be using the Medusa CLI tool quite a lot, so make sure you have that installed before moving on in this walkthrough. Alright, first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up a terminal and we're going to use our CLI tool to initialize a new Medusa project. So we're going to use Medusa new, and then we're going to say Medusa-test. Which is what I'm going to call my project. And then while this is installing, we're going to jump over to our documentation, which can be found at docs.medusajs.com. And then we're going to jump into the deployment section of the documentation and into the Heroku walkthrough here. This is the guide that we'll be following throughout the entire video here. For you to actually communicate with your Heroku account from the terminal, you need to run a couple of commands to get you up and running with their CLI, as well as authenticate you as a user in the terminal. All right, we see over here that Medusa got created successfully. So we're going to jump into our project here and open it up. Now, the important file here in the project is the Medusa config file. This is where all of the Medusa related magic happens. This is where you configure your database URL, your Redis URL, as well as all of the different plugins that you'll be using for your own custom setup. Now, before doing any configuration in here, we're going to jump back to the terminal and get you set up with a Heroku app. So we're going to jump into our documentation and we are just going to be copy pasting a couple of different commands here. Starting out by creating a application on Heroku. We're going to call it Medusa test, like our Medusa project. Then we're going to add it as a remote such that we can push to it. Then we're going to install a Postgres database on your app. And then we're going to install a Redis server on your app as well. Finally, we're going to install a couple of different config variables for your Medusa, for your Heroku setup. These are specific to Medusa. And then finally, we're going to tell Heroku that what we will be deploying today is a Node.js server. All right. The Redis server used in Medusa does not like usernames in the Redis URL, so we're going to do some fiddling around with the Redis URL on Heroku. So we're going to start out by fetching it. As you see here, there's a username called Redis to go, and this is what we will be removing. So we're going to copy in the function to set the URL, and we're going to delete everything until here, and then we're going to copy in the URL that we retrieved from Heroku, and then we are going to remove the username. Now it's very important that you have the colon here, otherwise the Redis server will not play nicely. So we're going to set that. All right, now we've configured everything for Heroku, so now we're going to configure Medusa. I'm going to open up the project once again, and then I'm just going to copy in the project config here, which replaces SQLite with a Postgres database URL, as well as a Postgres database type. And then it's going to set some database options as well for your environment. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to jump into the script section of your package.json, and we're going to copy paste a couple of specific commands needed for Heroku. So we're going to do that here. And then we're ready to launch your app and deploy it to Heroku. So I'm going to jump back into my terminal. I'm going to add all of the files to Git. I'm going to make a new commit. I'm going to call it deploy on Heroku. And then I'm going to finally push to the application that we created previously. Now what you'll see here is that it starts building the project, and then it's going to deploy it afterwards. While it's doing that, we can jump into a different terminal tab here, and we can spin up the logs for the Heroku application by saying Heroku logs, and then we're going to log the last 10,000 lines, and then we're going to say --tail to tell Heroku CLI that we will be following the logs to keep them active. And then we're going to say I was missing an app flag, so I'm just going to add that here. So I'm going to say app, and then I'm going to add the Medusa test, which was the name I configured previously. So now you see that all of the commands that we ran previously are now shown here. We can jump back into the other terminal, and then we see that all of the migrations have successfully run. And now it's actually deployed to Heroku. So we should be seeing that the app is deploying over here, and this is exactly what is happening. We're just going to wait for that to start up. All right, and then we're going to take the URL here just to test that the application is actually running. So we're going to jump into your browser here, open up a new tab, and then say store-products. All right, we see that Medusa is actually running now, but we don't have any products in our database. So let's finish off by seeding some data into your Medusa project. So we're going to jump into Heroku here, and then we're going to open up the project that you created. We're going to open up the console of your application. And then we're going to be using the Medusa CLI again here to run Medusa seed. And then we need the -f flag to indicate that we will be pointing to a file. And now I know there's a file in there in a folder called data that's called seed.json. So we will be pointing to that one. And then we're going to run that. And then we can jump back to our logs over here in the terminal. And hopefully we'll be able to see that some data will be seeded into your project. All right. It's successfully seeded some data. So let's just test it out by going to the same browser tab as before and then refreshing. And now we'll see all of the different products. So now you have a production ready environment deployed to Heroku.